Welcome to Audiodrama, where stories touch the soul and calm the heart. On this channel, you'll find stories told with softness, emotion, and depth, created to touch the listener's heart. Here, every story is a refuge, a hug made of words, with sweet, calm, and engaging narration. Our audios are perfect for those seeking bedtime stories, relaxing tales, moving narratives to unwind, or simply a moment of peace amid the chaos of the day. The philosophy of Socrates, the three filters of wisdom. Today's story takes place in a simple village, where a young man named Elias learned a lesson that changed everything. Before speaking, he passed his words through three filters: truth, kindness, and usefulness. This practice brought peace to him and his community, turning conversations into seeds of wisdom. The wisdom of the three filters reminds us that our words have power, and that thinking before speaking is the first step toward a kinder, more mindful world. Shall we enjoy the story? Once upon a time, there was a village called Golden Valley, surrounded by gentle mountains and green fields where the flowers seemed to smile at the sun. The people there lived simply. They harvested what they planted, gathered in the central square on Sundays, and shared stories around the old fountain. But like every small community, there was something that traveled faster than the river that ran through the valley: words. Elias was a 20-year-old young man with bright eyes and restless legs. He worked as an assistant at his uncle's bakery and knew almost everyone in the village. He was helpful, kind, and curious. Very curious. He liked to know what was happening, who was with whom, what so-and-so said, what this person did. Not out of malice, but out of habit. Like many, he thought that repeating what he heard was just chatting. On a hot spring morning, while delivering bread throughout the village, Elias overheard something at the market counter. A woman said that Marcos, the young blacksmith, was involved in a suspicious situation. Something about missing money, a favor not fulfilled, a broken promise. Elias didn't think twice. His feet barely touched the ground as he ran to the house of Master Dion. Dion was a man who carried time in his silver hair and the calmness of every gesture. He had a well-groomed beard, always neatly trimmed, as if each strand had been combed by a breeze of wisdom. His voice was gentle, but never weak. On the contrary, there was a quiet power in it, like the sound of water flowing over stones, patient, steady, and cleansing. He lived in a modest house with wooden windows and an old roof, where time seemed to rest beside the kettle. The garden surrounding his home was a reflection of himself, simple, yet full of life. Rose bushes blossomed in various colors: deep reds, delicate yellows, serene whites, and he tended to them carefully, as if silently conversing with nature. Everyone knew that no one touched his flowers, for Dion said that plants understand the touch and only truly bloom under gentle hands. The elders of the village said that Dion hadn't always been like this. In his youth, he had been a tireless traveler. He walked through deserts and forests, crossed seas in fragile sailing boats, and sat with monks, philosophers, and thinkers from distant lands. He learned not only through words, but also from the silence of mountains, the gaze of children in forgotten villages, and the humility of one who knows that true wisdom is infinite, and that the more you learn, the more you realize how much there is still to discover. When he returned to his homeland, he no longer desired riches, fame, or glory. He chose to live a peaceful life, far from the noise of the world. He spent his days watering flowers and words. Yes, because Dion believed that words need care too. They must be planted with truth, nurtured with kindness, and harvested with purpose. Otherwise, they are like thorns scattered in the wind, hurting without reason. On the porch of his house, there was always a straw chair where he would sit to read or simply watch the sunset. Sometimes a cat would curl up at his feet. Other times, village children came to listen to his stories. But what everyone knew, without a doubt, was that Dion was a guardian of words. A man who knew how to listen and, even more, knew when silence spoke louder than any hurried sentence. It was to him that people ran when they were confused, restless, or hurt by others' words, or burdened by their own poorly spoken ones. And it was precisely to him that Elias ran that day, his heart full of urgency and his mind heavy with doubts disguised as certainty. Elias arrived out of breath. "Master Dion, I need to tell you something urgent about Marcos." Dion was sitting in the shade of a fig tree, reading an old book with a worn cover. Without getting up, he looked at the young man with eyes that had seen much and answered calmly. "Wait, Elias. Before you tell me, let's pass this information through the 3 sieves." "The 3 what?" "Socrates' 3 sieves, the philosophers. It's a simple but powerful practice that teaches us to take care of the words we choose to spread into the world." Curious as he was, Elias nodded. He sat down on the grass, while Dion offered him a cup of mint tea freshly picked from the garden. "The first sieve is truth," Dion said, looking into the young man's eyes. "Are you sure that what you heard about Marcos is true?" Elias scratched his head. "Well, actually, I heard it from Mrs. Clara, who said her son heard Januario mention it, who supposedly heard it from someone at the tavern." Dion smiled, kindly without judgment. "So you're not sure. Let's move to the second sieve. Goodness. Is what you're about to say something good, Elias? Will it lift someone up, strengthen, or build someone?" The young man frowned, and his voice dropped. "No. Actually, it could harm his reputation. It's pretty serious." "I see," the master replied patiently. "And the third sieve is usefulness. Is what you want to tell me useful to me or to anyone? Will it make something better? Will it help Marcos or you become better people?" Elias thought. For the first time that day, he thought deeply before speaking. Finally, he answered, "I don't think so. I just thought it was interesting." Dion closed his book and looked up at the sky, where a few clouds seemed to wander lazily. "Elias, we all, at some point in life, spread words that haven't passed through any sieve, because we want to belong, because we feel that knowing something gives us some kind of power. But true power lies in knowing when to keep silent." The young man lowered his head. He wasn't ill-intentioned, just distracted by the fast pace of life and the voices around him. "What can I do then?" he asked sincerely. "You can start today to cultivate a new habit. conscious listening and speaking with purpose. If it's not true, good, or useful, let the word die inside you, and don't let it spread on the winds. That conversation with Master Dion didn't just touch Elias, it planted something new inside him. It was as if a gentle light had been kindled within, illuminating the space where before there had only been the naive desire to speak, to know, to be part of every story, even without knowing at what cost. That very day, as he walked back home with his breadbasket almost empty and his heart full of thoughts, Elias ran into Raoul, his childhood friend. Raoul was rushing along, eyes shining with excitement and his tongue as loose as ever. "Elias, did you hear what the tailor's daughter got up to? They told me that..." But before any words could fully escape, Elias gently raised one hand, not arrogantly but kindly. "Hey, Raoul, did you pass that through the 3 sieves?" Raoul stopped, confused. "The 3 what?" Elias smiled, a serene glow in his eyes. "The sieves of truth, goodness, and usefulness. Is what you're about to say really true? Is it something good? Will it be useful to me, or to anyone?" There was an odd silence in the air. Raoul scratched the back of his neck, let out a somewhat embarrassed laugh, and with an almost childlike gesture, answered, "Now that you put it like that, I guess it's better to let it go." And what could have been just a curious moment repeated itself. The next day, another person wanted to spread some malicious talk, and Elias asked the same question. Then it was the grocery lady's turn, and once again the sieve was raised like a quiet shield against aimless words. Little by little, Elias began to be seen differently. He was no longer known as the one who knew everything, the curious, one with ears always open and mouth ready. Instead, he became known as the young man who listened with wisdom and spoke with purpose. Someone who weighed words like they weighed gold. Carefully, thoughtfully, responsibly, and even more beautiful. Elias's transformation planted seeds throughout the village. Conversations in the town square changed tone. Where there had once been whispers and sideways glances, there were now more genuine laughs, stories full of hope and ideas that made eyes shine. The old fountain, which had heard more judgments than blessings before, now listened to future plans, grandmothers, advice, and children's dreams. Even the children began to play civ, as they called it. When one said something mean about another, the questions would come quickly. Is that really true? Is it a good thing to say? Will it help in any way? And they would laugh, hopping from stone to stone, as if Socrates' philosophy had turned into a playground game. The village of Valladorado, which was never perfect, became a lighter place. Mistakes still happened, as they do everywhere, but they were met with more compassion. Harsh words still existed, but held less power, because now people knew they had a choice. They could keep quiet, listen, and choose kindness. And all this happened because one young man decided not to repeat what he heard, but to live what he had learned. Years passed. Time, with its endless patience, marked Elias's face with gentle wrinkles, not of worry, but of contemplation. His hands, once quick and restless, had learned to move with the same serenity he had seen in Dion. And then, on a warm, golden late afternoon, when the rose bushes were in bloom and the wind seemed to whisper prayers through the leaves, the old Master Dion departed from this world. It was a peaceful farewell. Just like everything he did, he left life as one says goodbye to an old friend, with a soft smile and a heart at peace. Elias, now a grown man, inherited not only the small wooden house with its shuttered windows, but also Dion's invisible craft, the care of people's words. He began to prune the rose bushes with the same devotion, speaking to each plant as if every flower bud were a thought that needed to bloom gently. He tended the garden with the same reverence one gives to a sacred book. He had learned from Dion that whoever knows how to water a plant with attention also knows how to nurture a soul with care. On the porch where the master once sat, it was now Elias who served tea. The kettle, with its soft whistle, still announced moments of pause, and the tea, warm and fragrant, was merely a pretext for what truly mattered: listening. Yes, Elias kept listening. He listened to stories that came rushing in, full of anger, doubt, and anxiety. He listened without hurry, like someone carefully holding a cracked vase, and when he sensed the words were too loose, he asked, with the same calm as his master, if they had passed through the sieves. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it useful? Many would laugh, just as they did long ago. Others were left unsure of what to say, but almost everyone paused and thought. And in that moment of silence, Elias knew the seed had been planted. The philosophy of Socrates, which had crossed centuries, had found new soil to flourish, not in books, but in the daily choices of those who learn to think before speaking. In the village, generations changed, but the shadow of that teaching grew like a sturdy tree in the middle of the square. An invisible tree, perhaps, but one deeply felt. Because where there was once impulsiveness, there was now awareness. Where there was once gossip, there was now listening. Where there was once noise, there was now reflection. And so, Dion's legacy lived on in Elias, and through him it continued to touch every person who arrived tired from the world, thirsty for peace, and with hands full of words that did not yet know where to go. Elias knew how to welcome those words, not to keep them, nor to spread them, but to return them filtered, cared for, and cleansed, like water that has passed over stones and can now be drunk without fear, because, as he learned from his master, every word that passes through someone's heart deserves to be sifted through the sieve of truth, kindness, and usefulness. Otherwise, let it stay silent. There, it will hurt no one. Words are like seeds. They may seem small, light, insignificant, but once cast, they take root in other people's hearts. If scattered carelessly to the wind, without truth, without attention, without purpose, they grow like weeds, choking trust, invading feelings, strangling relationships. But when chosen wisely, watered with empathy, and sown with intention, they bloom like a garden of peace. They touch, heal, and embrace. They build bridges between people and light up dark places in the soul. Elias, now as old as Dion once was, looked at the blooming rose bushes at dusk and thought, every word I spoke was a seed. Some grew into flowers, others, perhaps, into thorns. But what made me a gardener of myself was learning to choose better what to plant. On the porch of his simple home, there was still a table set for anyone who needed to talk. The tea stayed, warm, and time moved gently. But above all, the sieves remained there, invisible yet present, between the heart and the mouth. So, before you speak, always remember Socrates' 3 sieves. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it useful? If the answer is yes to all, speak with courage and love, for you will be sowing beauty in the world. But if any answer is no, perhaps the best thing to offer is silence. Not a silence of neglect, but a noble silence, one that preserves, respects, and waits for the right moment. Because silence also teaches, and often it says exactly what the world needs to hear.